Welcome to Multifamily X podcast series, Masters of Multifamily Maintenance Conversations. Ready to engage in essential dialogues exploring the multifamily universe alongside top industry leaders? Join us as we explore fundamental conversations for the multifamily space. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is another episode of Multifamily X podcast, the maintenance series. Today, we have in a studio with us Jim Mitchell. Jim is the Vice President of Facilities for Centerspace. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thanks, Adrian. Happy to be here.
Jim, to begin with, I'd like to ask you to share a little bit about your journey with the audience right here. Tell us a little bit about your journey in general and specifically your multifamily journey.
Originally started my career in the construction industry and, I kind of fell into multifamily property management. Now that's a line that we've all heard lots of times, hundreds of times maybe from our colleagues, right? Lots and lots of us in our industry just kind of like happened into it. I didn't really even know that this existed as an industry or as a career or any of that kind of stuff. Once I learned of it, it made sense. And I'm like, well, of course people do this. Of course people manage apartments. And then some companies might manage a lot of apartments, right? But so I started in multifamily in 2005. I was construction owner's rep for a company that had a substantial rehab project. They wanted to remodel about 1,000 apartments occupied all within a year's time, all senior housing. So, there's 8 challenges right there that I just presented. And I didn't know, as a construction guy, I didn't know if I was going to do that job and then move on. And when we talked and, agreed that this seemed like a really good fit for both of us, I just said, hey, as long as we're kind of talking at the 9-month mark, because they had a hard deadline when it had to get done due to the funding source, right? So there was no let's see how it goes. I mean, they had to get done. And I just said, hey, as long as we're talking about the 9-month mark, about where we're both headed and that kind of stuff, then, I'm in. I'll do this. From construction, I'm kind of a jobber. And it was about 6 months into that job that they had some struggles doing some larger scale projects on some of their high rises, things like some roofs and boilers. And they just didn't really have anybody that had the that could formalize a process, right? They had to go to HUD for approval. So they really needed to have, pull some pre-bids and organize and a good, process that had a lot of transparency to it. And I was able to help them out with some of that stuff. And then they, at that point in time, I think it was 6-7 months into the job, something like that. They asked if I would stay and head up their maintenance and their construction going forward, even after I finished that project. And I thought, man, this is great. I found this business. Here's something that I can do with my skill set. And unlike construction, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of layoffs. I didn't see seasonal layoffs happening here. I didn't see the workload changing. Our workload in our business is pretty flat, right? Construction, as everybody knows, we all know, can be very volatile, right? I mean, one thing happens in the market, whether it's recession or interest rates or whatever, and one of the leading indicators, as we all know, one of the first things to go south is construction. And we can look at right now this year, with interest rates being where they are, starts are down 50% compared to where they have been, right? So a lot fewer projects getting started this year than what we've experienced in the last few years, and that demonstrates and really shows in today's terms exactly how that industry goes. And then the rest of us, those of us in multifamily are here and saying, yeah, boy, the interest rate, landscape is difficult. We can't transact like we normally would transact. Can't buy stuff and sell stuff like we normally could because nobody's comfortable with knowing where cap rates should be and therefore what value should actually be, but we're still renting apartments. And, so multifamily, we're still okay. And we're able to kind of weather some of these volatilities that happen within the economy and some of these ups and downs. It impacts us, no question about it. It impacts us both ways, right? Coming off a couple of years that are probably the best our industry has ever seen, and heading into what will be a little, facing some headwinds now, certainly heading into 24 and 25.
Before going to the second question, I need to remember to acknowledge our partners from AppWork. This podcast is possible thanks to our partnership, and they're powering our podcast today. Second question for you, Jim, is when it comes to developing maintenance leaders in a multifamily, what would you say is the single most important skill that organizations should be focusing on?
Most often, the way that somebody is going to move into a maintenance leadership role is they were an outstanding technician, right? They really knew how to fix things and do repairs and provide high level of customer service and all those sorts of things. And transitioning into leadership requires the addition of some more skills. And I think key and chief among them is resource management. So resource management includes things like, how do I manage the calendar? And now all of a sudden I have a team of some number of techs, right? So how do I manage the calendar most effectively so I can achieve all the objectives that our business has, right? Traditionally, in most states, people are moving in and out, around the first of the month. And so that first and last week of the month can be extremely busy. Middle 2 weeks of the month might be a little bit slower. Getting a new leader to understand that that's the time when we can do preventive maintenance and do some other catch-up things and some of those sorts of things, the routine stuff, right? To leverage those 2 weeks. So time management, how to manage a team and how to best use those resources. Whether that's, and some of this will be, your given property. You might say that, I have 4 techs and 4 buildings, so everybody takes a building. And that's a model, right? And you can drive some accountability around that. You might say, I have 4 techs. I got a great carpenter, electrician, a great plumber, and a great HVAC guy. So I'm going to divide up the work based on their skill sets and stuff like that, right? Those are different approaches to kind of solving for the same thing, right? How do I best leverage the team resource that I have? And that's a different way of thinking than how do I go do more work orders today, or how do I do work orders better, or, how do I improve my error rate, right? And not have callbacks and some of those kind of things. So this whole resource management thing is different. There's also the financial resources, because now you're probably going to have some budget accountability, which might also be new. Although I think if we all think about our home lives, it's not very new, right? We all do that as a practical matter every day at home. But even things like, managing inventory level, right? So, I see sometimes teams can lose efficiency because they just don't have the appropriate inventory on hand at all times, right? And anticipating. So here at Centerspace, we say that we have 65 days to turn apartments, okay? Not 5 days. So 5 days is kind of industry standard, right? We push to get 95% of our turns done within 5 Centerspace business days after a move out. However, our residents tell us 60 days before they're going to leave that they're leaving, or they give us that notice to vacate at the 60-day mark. That's when we inspect the apartment. And that's when we're asking our teams over that next, call it T minus 53 at that point, right? Because 7 days we've inspected. We got 53 days left before the move out. Order long lead items. Schedule with vendors as appropriate and as you can. I always say it's easier to cancel than it is to schedule. Go in and do work. If there's a broken towel bar, if there's light bulbs, if there's ceiling fans, whatever the case is, any of those turn activities that we can get done, again, leveraging that middle 2 weeks of the month, or whenever it's slow for you, within your workflow, your property, your company, right? We're all a little bit different. But being able to have things like that sitting like on a list, so when hey man, the 3rd week of the month, we have more capacity than any other week. Let's go attack this list of stuff during that time. So managing resources, I think, is the key. It's probably the single most important skill for leadership.
So, Jim, I wanted to go back a little bit to your current role. And I want to ask you to share a little bit about, what are some great things that you do at Centerspace? I'd like to, tell us a little bit about the company, company size. What type of profile assets are you overseeing, managing? Is it own and manage? Do you do third party? Also, just tell us a little bit about your company.
Sure. So we are a publicly traded REIT. We started in business in about 1970 and began being publicly traded in the late 90s. We currently sit at about 13,000 apartments, all owned and managed. We don't do any fee management. We only manage what we own. We were as high as 15,000 units, a year or so ago. We have had some dispositions and some acquisitions. So today it's about 13 up until 2010. So from 1970 to 2010. So for 40 years, we didn't manage anything. We were really a company of executives. Everything, all of our whole multifamily residential portfolio was third-party fee managed. And then we had a bunch of commercial and industrial and retail. And then we brought management of the multifamily in-house. And then in 2017, so not that long ago, just 6 years ago, began transitioning from a multi-asset type REIT to a pure multifamily player. And so it was at that time that a few people were brought in like myself, and we had a whole new leadership team here because as we had disposed of, we had a lot of medical stuff, malls, like I said, you name it, warehouses, whatever. And so as we took and redeployed that cash and moved it into multifamily resources, a few of us who have a lot of multifamily experience were brought in to kind of help transform the company into what we are today, which is we are purely multifamily. We do have some mixed use assets. We've got some retail on the first floor, or even We sell in a couple like outbuildings and some of those kind of things, but that's not really our bread and butter. That's not our core. Our core business is apartments, and we do manage and own and don't, like I said, don't do any third-party stuff.
My next question, Jim, is about recruiting. And I want to ask you, how can organizations effectively recruit the right talent for their maintenance teams? And then go very specific. What does your company do to recruit the best talent out there?
This is tough. I mean, we all know this is like, I don't know, gosh, I'm not going to say rank things, but is this the most difficult thing in maintenance? I don't know, maybe. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, we're all experiencing this right now, and this is not entirely new, right? Even, 5+ years ago, we were all talking on a national level that we were probably down about 25%, within these jobs. It is tough to recruit. I think that, one, having a company that has a strong name, I think that's very helpful, right? So a company that's involved in apartment associations and enjoy some success within those and some of their programs that they have, that's great. Involved not just being a member, but having some team members within the firm participate on those committees. So getting our name out there in the multifamily community through some of the apartment trade associations and that kind of stuff, I think would be very beneficial. That's not going to help us get somebody who's not in our industry, right? That's going to primarily help with, recruiting from competitors. We are trying job fairs. We're participating in a program in one of our markets actually that's pretty interesting. It's early, but we're optimistic about it. So the Denver Apartment Association actually has an apprenticeship program. We have one of the apprentices, so we're participating in that program. These techs work 4 hours a day, and then they go to school on Fridays and work towards getting their CAMT. And so by the time they finish this program, they'll come out and they'll have their national, their NAA CAMT designation. We think that's pretty innovative and pretty new. We're not seeing a lot of that happening. We're not typically a union type business where there would be robust apprenticeship programs and that kind of stuff. That's not the most common, multifamily operator out there. So it is challenging because we don't have that level of support, right, of being a part of a trade association of that nature. But leveraging the apartment association and some of the things they're doing is a big one for us. And like I say, good reputation, and we do job fairs and some of that kind of stuff. I can't speak to how effective that stuff is. My role is not HR, but it is challenging. We don't get as many resumes as we did, and don't get maybe a little different quality than what we used to get in the past. Some of that I think is also due to the construction industry being so busy, and maybe those jobs being viewed as being a more preferred job than our jobs.
When it comes to skills development, what strategies would you recommend for cultivating maintenance leaders within an organization?
I think one of the things that I think is important here is to leverage our existing leaders, right? So here at Centerspace, we have something called the Council of Service Advisors. So this is 14 members of our maintenance leadership team from across our portfolio, so from across all markets. So they're kind of in a regional maintenance position, but they're supervisors on a property. It's not a formal title of like a regional maintenance manager, but they provide a lot of mentorship and a lot of training to some of our newer guys. We've got a couple of properties that are bigger, where we kind of, like we have one that's a flagship here in a suburb of Minneapolis. Those bigger properties, great training ground, where the new tech can get lots of support from some more seasoned veterans, and we can kind of use that almost as like a launch pad, to train folks to go maybe to other areas of our portfolio, as they can be a larger asset, right? Because if you have let's say you have a 2-person operation, back of house and maintenance, and you're down one tech for 3 months, let's just say, pretty common thing, right? Well, the new one starts, then that's a brand new person who really doesn't know very much at all. The seasoned person who's still there, for every task that they might teach the new person, that now takes them 2 to 3 times as long as it would to just do it. And they get frustrated. They're like, well, I could just do that, So it's challenging when you have a very small team on a site to be able to provide effective enough training because, again, it can become a little bit burdensome, for lack of a better term. When it's a larger team, at an asset we have a larger team, there's lots more opportunities for training, and you can give a much stronger level of support to the new techs. As far as the leaders, I think the Service Advisory Council that I talked about is a big deal. Those folks participate in stretch assignments. So one example is regionally here in St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is not Minneapolis, it's a different part of the state, but We have one of our service advisors there who took on the bidding of all the snow removal contracts for that region, plus some other portions of the Minneapolis region, and kind of centralized it, and then was able to negotiate with one or two haulers, improve on pricing. He did a great job. More importantly, he did it, and he hadn't done this before, right? So with some guidance and some assistance from some senior leadership here at Centerspace, Kurt was his name, went through this process, which was, I don't know, across 10 or 12 properties or something like that. So pretty significant piece of business if you think about how much it actually costs to plow snow in Minnesota, where we get about 5 feet a year, right? And it's a stretch assignment, which is one of the things that I often look for. And then Kurt, along with another one of the service advisors, tomorrow we'll do a facilities all hands for all of our on-site teams and all of our regional teams. We do this quarterly. And so two of the service advisors actually are presenting slides in our deck tomorrow to the whole company. Any opportunities like that, stretch assignments, opportunities for somebody to get outside of themselves, do something more than they maybe have done before. Kurt bidding out that snow stuff. He's bid out work, right? All of these people have bid stuff out one at a time and just, maybe haven't had the visibility, the opportunity to do something at a larger scale. He's excelling at it. And I'm watching him, and I'm so proud and so gratified to be a part of a team where I can watch somebody like Kurt grow the way that he's growing through opportunities that we're able to provide like this.
Elevate your people. I love the story. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, and it pays. It pays. And and like I say, it's just really extremely gratifying to be able to help somebody grow and be a part of that growth.
Jim, next I want to talk about career paths. And I wanted to ask you, what's your take on career pathing in our industry? How can organizations define and nurture career progression for their teams?
So some of it's investment. Are you going to have that other step on the ladder or not going to have another step on the ladder? A little bit interesting because often, we talk about the importance of service and how critical that is to our customers. Yet oftentimes, a lot of us who've been around for a little bit of time see that this is an area where maybe it's not as invested as heavily as the way that we talk about it. But even without a formal position, the things that I just talked about with Kurt and others on our team here, where they are being elevated, so we got them jackets and hats and, you know what I mean? Give them some swag, not just to make things feel important, but because they are important. So acknowledge their importance, and put them into a position where, they do have an opportunity to do more and to grow into something more. Sometimes you're constrained by the size of your company as well, in terms of how many, positions or how many rungs on the ladder you're able to develop. So these are all challenges, right? It's not like, somebody's great, we're going to make a new job for that person. We can't do that. But I think the stretch assignments, due diligence, any of these opportunities, any of the special activities that have to happen, whether that is bidding out things on a portfolio basis, whether that's, going to walk units at a new acquisition and just be part of that team, and get additional exposure, to folks from the support offices or corporate offices.
One of the struggles that we have as an industry, and I've been around for 20 plus years, is how to switch from the reactive mode into the proactive mode. We always seem to be out there like way too busy to put out fires, to do anything proactively. So what are some tips? What are some things that we should do as an industry, Jim, to kind of turn the tables on this reactive behavior, to become more proactive, to go from defense to offense, is what I call it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a couple things. One, I think it's, it's a balancing act that doesn't hit either extreme. I sat at a large national conference one time and saw a presentation on preventive maintenance, and the presenter actually said, it doesn't matter what else comes up. If you're doing your PMs, doesn't matter. You got to keep doing that. Well, I think that if a customer calls and they have some significant problem, we might need to pause, and address that. So common sense needs to come into play. There needs to be a balance. And the balance that I'm talking about is kind of predicated on a cost benefit analysis, right? And it's not dollar cost solely. That is, of course, the key metric in business. Well, that's how we keep scores with a dollar, of course. But there are other factors to consider. So, I'll give you an example where there was where lack of preventive maintenance had a significant dollar impact, but also had a negative impact on customers and the team at the same time. So, vertical PPAC, magic pack. or that's the Kleenex word for it, right? So magic packs are vulnerable if their cooling coils get clogged up with stuff. In some places there's cottonwood trees. I don't know what you have in Georgia, Adrian, but here we have these cottonwood trees. These things release this stuff that looks like cotton, right, in like late June, early July. Clogs up AC condensers horribly, right? Magic packs are particularly vulnerable to this because they're sitting in a box inside, and they don't have as much surface area maybe as a ground-mounted AC condenser. So COVID hits. Surprise for all of us, right? Okay, what are we going to do? We don't know anything what the costs are going to be, so we're thinking, okay, what can we scale back to try and keep some dry powder to be able to endure this pandemic that nobody's ever done this before, right? So we scale back the cleaning of magic packs at a couple of properties, and the total probably between those two 600 units, something like that. I'm close enough. In that year that we scaled it back, we had $40,000 in HVAC service calls with an average cost of $350. When I think about what happens when somebody's without their AC, first thing I think about is, okay, they put their work order in, they wait for someone to come look at it. Then they might have to wait for someone to come fix it or whatever. They might be without AC for a day or 2 days or 3 days, whatever it is, The team gets that call, whether it's through a portal or however it comes in, right? It's like, oh shoot, Adrian's AC is out. Okay. Hey Jim, go look at it, right? So now the maintenance team might spend an hour or 2 hours or something like that. Just process, the whole team, if you combine it, is going to spend a whole bunch of time just processing this. Now in this example where I said it was about $40,000 in cost and with an average cost of about $350, that's 85, 90 tickets. Or something like that. We cleaned them. They look like 2 coats of sweater because you can tell seasonally if something, it's like looking at rings of a tree trunk, right? An AC that hasn't been cleaned. You can tell how many years by looking at the color of the lint, right? So you can see that these things hadn't been cleaned in 2 years. It was as plain as day. We cleaned them and there were no service calls at all. I think we spent $50 to clean them. So now the reactive approach was cheaper. From a dollar per dollar perspective, if you don't care about how much time your team spends, and if you don't care about unhappy customers, or if you don't monetize your team's time, said differently, and monetize customer dissatisfaction or customer satisfaction. And so this is like exhibit A of an example that I can hold up of a real world thing that just happened a couple of years ago. And this is the balancing act, right? So what's the overall impact of not doing something? What's the overall impact of doing something? If a roof has an estimated useful life of 20 years, does that mean that at year 19 or at year 20, we should proactively replace that roof? I don't necessarily think it does. I'm not a proponent of performing roofs into dumpsters, right? I think that we need to be vigilant and we need to be looking at that and doing a critical assessment of that roof assembly, at all points in time, and certainly as it gets older. And, you can have a roofer come out for about $1,500 a year and go over your flat roof and make sure the sealants and flashings and all that kind of stuff are in good nick. There's one manufacturer I know of who will actually extend your warranty by 5 years if you can prove that you did that. So the replacing of the roof based on an estimated useful life calculation, I don't see that making a whole lot of sense in our business. If that roof is still serviceable and you're doing things that that it's still serviceable, right? That's a place where I'm going to be reactive. Because the other thing that happens most often with roofs, and I'm not, don't generalize what I'm saying, but most often when a roof leaks the first time, you can do something to get you to the next year and you can budget for it, and so that's reactive, but it's not like knee-jerk, making a battlefield decision, right? Where, oh my God, I got to go replace this roof right now. So I hope those two examples kind of serve to illustrate the difference that I'm drawing here.
The next topic, Jim, that I want to talk about is employee retention. Of course, specific to maintenance.
Yeah.
It's a critical aspect of maintaining strong assets, well-performing assets. What strategies do you believe are essential for keeping top talent engaged and motivated?
Sure. This is a great question. And this is largely what our council of service advisors is about. It is about helping them grow, but it's also about retaining them and also giving our other team members something to aspire to. I'm not going to say something like that because it gives us a competitive edge, because in order for it to be a competitive edge, kind of everybody would have to know about it. You know what I mean? What we pay or don't pay might or might not be a competitive edge, right? That's part of it too. One thing that I think a lot of us have seen happen is that, man, the market sure moved a lot faster than we did when it comes to wages over the past couple of years, right? And we actually have done a couple of mid-year adjustments here in our shop because we realized that, these jobs are in such, these techs, these people are in such high demand, and at a lower level of pay, moving for, a couple of bucks an hour can be super meaningful to somebody. It can be a significant decision maker for them, more so than them liking me, which is, I know it's crazy, but it's true. It does happen. But, so I think transparency with that, hey, Adrian, we realize that the market has moved faster, than we have. So here's what we're thinking we'd like to do. You know what I mean? And trying to get, I'm not going to say ahead of it because we've done this kind of from a reactionary position. Like I think everybody has, you don't know how fast the market's moving. It's kind of like you don't know the price that you can get for an apartment until you hear no. So it's like, that's how it is with this. We don't know how much wages are moving until we get that feedback from candidates, right? That, we're not in step with the market, right? And then it does become a matter of like, okay, well, let's make sure that all of our team members are in step with where the market is at, right? So we're not putting ourselves at a significantly competitive disadvantage. I think that again, any of these opportunities for growth, stretch assignments, that kind of stuff, that stuff is all very meaningful to people. It's because it's recognition with action, right? Like I recognize that you're talented. In fact, I recognize it so much that I'd like you to join us on a trip to wherever to come look at this new asset that we might buy, because I value your observations and your opinions, right? So that kind of value I think is important. And then ongoing training, so in Minnesota, we have something called a boiler's license. You have to have a special Class C boiler's license to run a building that has boilers in it. Most other states don't require that. We also have assets in North Dakota where we have boilers. They don't require a boiler's license, but we're working to get our guys in North Dakota the same boiler's license, right? Because people like to have credentials, and we like them to have credentials because that all is a very clear demonstration of growth. Like, here, I got a license. You know what I mean? That's meaningful. That level of investment in our teams, I think, is very meaningful. And we're currently investing in a new to us training program that I think is going to be very powerful for our teams. And it's going to help them grow. So it's a virtual reality-based training program being used extensively right now by a number of larger management operators, and then also some bona fide apprenticeship programs, primarily throughout some of the right-to-work states. Manufacturers like Carrier and Lean are using this to train their dealers and their dealers' technicians on their equipment. So yeah, you put the goggles on, and to work on an AC condenser, you got to take a knee, and because two objections that I've always heard from training from maintenance techs are, I want one-on-one training, and then the more common one is hands-on. Can I get hands-on training? And it's like, well, if we're going to teach 30 people how to fix a refrigerator, we can't fit 60 hands in the fridge. We're not going to break that same fridge 30 times over and over again while everyone 29 watch and then rotate through it, right? So how do you do that? And so this virtual reality program that we're deploying right now seems to check both of those boxes. So I think whether we're talking about, retaining techs and staying in tech, whatever, that's all great, or growing them into leaders or retaining leaders, I think the training demonstrates a lack of commitment on the part of the company. Again, it's like a skill like the boiler thing. Those guys actually don't need that, right? They want it though, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, I got a way to give it to you, or, to provide that to you. And so I want you to have it, right? So, this thing, you can even get a national HVAC certification, right? And some people might say, well, geez, if these people certified, aren't they going to leave? And I'm like, oh, I don't think they are. If a couple do, I guess they do. I'm more scared of them not having the training. We see the costs going up and up and up with, as I talked about before, with, maybe the level of experience and expertise that we see, entering our teams in these areas, right? It's diminishing, not becoming better and better. So with that, we've also seen more and more work move over to vendors that, 10 years ago, we'd have been like, what do you mean you're calling a vendor for that? We do that ourselves. We do that in-house, right? And I'm not a proponent of do everything in-house, but I think there's a balancing act with this, just like there is a preventive versus reactive maintenance and replacements, right? But we ought to be able to troubleshoot something in-house and know where we draw the line for ourselves so we can stay within ourselves, right? We should be able to say, okay, I can go through some basic steps and figure out if I should actually work on this air handler or if I should call, an HVAC contractor.
And now a word from Sean Landsberg, co-founder, AppWork.
What you can measure, you can improve. You did mention an average completion time or tracking completion time for maintenance technicians. What other very important KPIs is AppWork capable of tracking?
All the data can also be broken down. All those KPIs can be broken down, like we said, on a property level, technician level, or back up to a portfolio level. But even within a technician, you could break that down based off of the categories. You can see, how is this technician doing with HVAC work orders, with plumbing work orders. We also took the concept of KPIs. A lot of companies use a KPI to say, how is somebody doing? And let's look at his KPIs. But another thing that we actually did is we took that a step further, where we actually translated those KPIs into sentence-based comment. The system would actually automatically spit out, an actual actionable sentence, whether it's positive or negative, based on the technician's performance.
Jim, do you think that we as an industry were heading towards contracting more work and doing less in-house, kind of like the commercial maintenance, commercial building maintenance? This is a model that's been around for decades in commercial.
Yeah.
That's something new. But I'm thinking, in my opinion, right, the trend for multifamily is kind of the same. It follows. Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I'm watching it happen right now. I mean, something's got to give. If 7-8 years ago we had a deficit of 25% talent to job, I don't know what that deficit is today. I'm sure there's people that are smart that do know. I'm not one of them. Let's just say it's 30%. Do any of us think that's going to improve and get better? Have these jobs become more attractive today than they were 10 or 20 years ago? I don't think they have. The trend has been, everybody's talking about this all the time, the trend of, folks not entering, the trades as much as they did in the past, and it's like, I don't know what drives it. I don't know if it's like a parent is a college graduate, they want their kid to go to college too or something. I don't know, but we all know this is what's happening. So, I don't think things are going to just get better for us. I don't think all of a sudden we're going to find that, there's some magic wand that gets waved and all of a sudden there's enough techs. And in fact, they're so plentiful, that we can kind of start having our pick. So no, something's got to give. So I think when I think about this stuff though, and this is one of the things I do talk with our teams about a lot, it's like, okay, what can you pay someone else to do? What you can't pay someone else to do is to provide that connection between Centerspace and the customer. That plumber, that electrician, they can't do that. Our team leads, our supervisors, that's exactly what they do. Our product isn't buildings. Our product isn't amenities. Our product is not apartments. Our product is our people. We all know, those of us who are tenured, we all know that customers will stay in an older asset that's less amenitized. It's clean, well kept, and if the service is great. So that's really how we differentiate ourselves. And I know all the new products coming on the line, man, there's like more amenities been invented in the last 5 years, probably in the 100 years of apartments before that. But, and the amenities are cool. I mean, there's lots of demand for those. And there's lots of, there's a segment of our customer population that jumps around, right, and chases around new deals and keeps going to concession and more and more amenities and that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's like the mainstay of our customer base. I think the mainstay of our customer base recognizes the value that there is in service. And so when we're talking about outsourcing things, yeah, we can pay somebody to come fix the furnace. Do I want to pay someone to come this is going to be a gross overstatement. Don't want to pay someone to come fix the towel box, right? No. And do I think for a minute that I can delegate or offload that customer connection that only a Centerspace team member can make? No. So that's, we all have good judgment in general, I think. And so exercising judgment kind of along that as being one of the decision factors, I think is helpful. I sit in here and look at spreadsheets and I'm like, dang it, how can we spend less on HVAC maintenance? Just like everybody that sits in my job around the country does. But really, and that's important. I'm not trying to say that's not important. That is important. But more importantly to me is like, that connection with our customer. And, that's really, what I want our team focused on.
What you just described, Jim, by describing your connection with a customer is culture, right?
Yeah.
And I have the saying, you have to build the culture yourself. You can't delegate or outsource culture.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm sure that's true. Yeah, and it needs to be top down. But it needs to be consistent throughout an organization.
Now, a topic that's kind of tied into my previous question, the one where I was asking, are we heading towards more outsourcing? Is centralization. Centralization in maintenance. Let's talk about this. And I want to ask you first, is centralization in maintenance, multifamily maintenance, a buzzword? Is it something that's real? Is it tangible? How tangible is it? How doable is it? What level of centralization we could do with what we know today in 2023? I'm sure that this conversation is going to be different 5 years from now, but today.
Yeah. I'm certainly not hearing as much talk about centralizing maintenance as I am about leasing and assistant managers and that kind of stuff. Because that's happening full swing right now, right? I did centralize a company's maintenance years ago, but, that was a company that had a lot of small assets and they were just super, super inefficient. You know what I mean? And so, there we were able to, increase the unit count that guys had by about 20% or something like that. So that was it was significant to have a 20% reduction, right? And that was basically like everybody kind of became not really a rover, but, you might have 3 40-unit properties or something like that, and those sorts of things. I think that, a central call center is getting popular, I think. One of the big complaints you hear from techs is kind of the garbage in problem, of residents type stuff into that portal that just doesn't make any sense, and everybody puts this as, emergency priority, emergency status because it's me, and I want it done fast. So I do think there's probably some opportunity for better triage through centralization. I think that there's a lot of technology emerging right now that probably helps with that. Honestly, so I don't know that it's actually a person sitting somewhere necessarily. I think that's one key area to improve. As I think about, what your comments around commercial, this is something I hadn't thought before you mentioned that, Adrian. I could definitely see a day, where you could have, I'm going to make this up. You could have one maintenance person, overseeing 3x what they currently do now. If we all say the average is 120 or 130 or 110, whatever, who cares? But, what I mean? Could one person do 400 units and then use vendors for everything that they couldn't, like everything that's not a towel bar? I know that's a silly example, but this is not something I don't think that I've really thought about. But as I think about, commercial and how commercial works, that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, I don't know how many square feet, attacking commercial manages, but they're not doing a lot of the work themselves. You're right. They're calling the plumber, they're calling the HVAC company, and that's also who's managing their preventive maintenance for them. So I could see that happening. Now, I don't think there's more people becoming plumbers. I think they're running into the same problems we are, right? People don't want to be maintenance techs, they don't want to be plumbers either. I think there's a finite supply currently of talent, kind of within the trades work, that might still limit that. But yeah, the only way I could see that it gets centralized is we would have to figure out a financial balancing act between, what does it cost to outsource this stuff versus doing it ourselves, understanding that when you do it yourselves, you kind of do have so many efficiencies built in with that team, even though maybe they're a lower cost per hour. But I'm sure there's a balancing point with that. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it goes to more of a centralization. Our portfolio being in the upper Midwest, that might be a little more challenging for us because we're in some markets that are pretty small. And the thing about small markets is we might all think, oh, small town, tighter knit, whatever. The resources are scarce. You might be in a place like Bismarck, North Dakota, and you have like 4 viable plumbers you can choose from. In Atlanta, you have 400 or 4,000. Minneapolis, 400. You know what I mean? Bigger markets are much easier. So when we're talking about centralization, I can see it. We're not coastal like most of the REITs are, right? So we're in some less populated areas, particularly when we're in like Montana, North and South Dakota. So I don't know, thinking about our portfolio, Minneapolis, Denver, yeah, could probably do it. Some of the other markets we're in be real challenging.
You mentioned technology being a tool that's going to help probably driving the centralization. So I want to stick to technology and get your thoughts on PropTech products currently available for maintenance. And tell us if there's a product that stands out to you, and are there any features that are yet to be developed, in your opinion, that you're not aware of being developed currently?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is a super fun area to be a part of right now, as things are just, growing exponentially every week, it feels like, We are currently, we have begun deploying IoT technology across our entire portfolio. That includes smart locks, leak sensors, and Wi-Fi thermostats. Smart locks, if you think about when somebody moves out and we change to a vendor lock, well, if we're doing value add, we might change to a construction lock. Then those guys say they're done, we all agree you're done. Then we're going to change it to a leasing lock or something like that. Then change it when somebody moves in. Hand cutting keys. Some of our systems out there require somebody carries a PDA around to the actual door and then punches something in. And I've heard some horror stories about how long those things can take. And the smart lock that we put in, we move you in and move you out of our management system. The lock changes like that. Maintenance that doesn't have to do anything. I'd have to look at the numbers, but just through a little over 15 minutes, I think our last analysis showed some results through about 10, let's just say it's 10 properties. It's just a conversation thing, okay? And our leak sensors have caught a couple hundred leaks, although they're still small. Now, some of them, where somebody repeatedly stole something under their sink, okay? That's not what we're worried about. We're worried about that closet with the PTAC, with the magic pack in it. That's the $35,000 loss. And if you live in a self-insured world, like many of us of our size do, where you got, $100,000 deductibles and higher, we're paying that $35,000 loss. And we've caught, it's a couple hundred or 150 leaks so far. Our average cost of a insurance loss is $3,500. We have $1,000 a year. So it's a death by paper cut world. And as I kind of described the disruption that happens to the customer and to the team earlier in my example of the magic pack that didn't get PM'd. And so it goes with this. By the time that somebody realizes, let's say that the condensate can in their magic pack is overflowed, it might not be till the water creeps out 3 or 4 feet into their carpet of their bedroom, which is super common scenario, right? And if they're on the 3rd floor or the 4th floor, by the time that's happened, guess what? It's 30 to 40 grand because it's gone down, right? So that technology is exciting to me, and like I said, we're deploying that right now today. The other one that we've looked at a little bit is there are some IoT sensors out there that listen to systems, so they could listen to, like, let's say the sound of an air handler and know based on its sound. And I know I'm butchering this and oversimplifying it because I don't really know what I'm talking about with it, but I understand the concept. It knows when there's something wrong. And what might be wrong is it just needs a filter change, right? So it can hear the airflow has changed significantly enough. And this stuff is still learning, right? This is AI and IoT kind of like, getting married, I think. But there are some of these systems that are available right now that are, they're pretty new. They're a little too new for us to want to adopt. But that intrigues me. It's like, I think a lot of us have heard about some of these IoT devices that you can like put on a motor, and it senses when one of the motor parameters, is getting to a point where failure is imminent, right? So now you can kind of do this just-in-time replacement. So that's like, it's planned, but it's also reactive at the same time, which is kind of like the sweet spot, right? It's like the roof I talked about. I don't want to throw a roof away that, it's got 3 years left in it. And if there's some device that could tell me when that thing had 18 months left, that would be cool. So these things, the whole IoT world, I think is, emerging super rapidly. And I think that, as AI also continues to progress at just an entirely breakneck pace, I think we're going to see more and more of this stuff. I think that, these technologies also help answer some of that, team capacity question. Like when I talk about changing locks, I talk about even simple mundane things like, we've got 75 pools or something like that. We bought robots for all of them because it saves 2 hours a day. And we want that 2 hours a day for our teams because we really care about their efficiency now. 10 years ago, the conversations a lot of times that I would hear is, I don't care because Jim's on site 40 hours a week anyway. So why do I care if Jim's efficient? Today, we care a lot. We care a lot because while Jim's out vacuuming the pool, one of our customers has a dishwasher that's not getting fixed. And if there was a robot that could vacuum that pool, Jim could go fix that dishwasher. Right? So there's the simple technology, and there's this IoT thing, which, like I say, for us is, we are deploying it now. And, so far the results are, my initial reaction when I saw the data, our asset management team is doing this for us, when I saw their first round of data, I think they'd been in pilot at that point for about 6 months. I was like, we can't go fast enough. We can't go fast enough. Every one of those $3,500 losses, the hours that it takes, we should calculate it at some time because support team here, our team's on site, the project manager, get all these people involved. You know what I mean? Not that a project manager comes in and like runs a $3,500 project. We have too much volume to do that. But they review them all, and they sit in monthly meetings with all of our, community leaders and talk about all the stuff they got going on at their properties. They do it on a regional basis. So this stuff eats us alive. These little $3,500, all these paper cuts. This is where technology can help us with the real mundane, kind of repetitive stuff, where it really does have a significant impact on our efficiency.
Jim, I'm super curious here. How far are you into those projects? Have you had some that are already completed and you're harvesting data?
Oh yeah. We got about 15. We got about 15 that are done. We got one kicking off every Tuesday, from now through 25.
Okay.
So we'll be done. We'll be through our entire portfolio. I think we'll be through our entire portfolio like early to mid 25. And we would go faster if our partner could go faster.
So on the locks, how are you quantifying? Do you have enough data points to share here with us, with the audience? Do you have enough data points to show how much time does it save your maintenance teams? Not having to pick up a key from the box, go return the key, like this back and forth, and how much does that help leasing office, like not having the clutter of vendors waiting for a key or waiting to get their ID back or from returning a key? Do you have that?
We do have an efficiency gain. Yeah, we do have an efficiency gain that was part of our underwriting for this. As we're talking here, I'm trying to see if I can pull it up because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's significant. And then you think about vendor management during the turn process, right? And the cleaner and the carpet guy and painter and whoever's got to come. And it's like, I can just, not an advertisement, we use Yardi for our, management system. Most people do. It's the most common one in the world. But I can send you a credential out of Yardi that says, hey, on Tuesday, November 14th, you're good from 9 to 5 to get access to these 4 apartments. And then it gets turned off. You don't have to come in the office. I don't have to take your license from you, hand you a key, then you forget to come back. So you're also happy with this too as a vendor, right? You're getting a better experience as well. Because now I'm not taking your license, and you're not taking a pocket full of keys home. Getting halfway home, you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to give them back their keys. Oh, now they're closed. You know what I mean? That sounds a little silly, a little crazy, but that's common. I mean, that's what happens. So yeah, we keep talking. I'll keep seeing if I can peck at and tell you. I'm happy to share the numbers with you. It's just a matter of finding them.
Yeah. One of the reasons I get excited to bring maintenance leaders like you here on our show is that we share the same passion, and it makes so much sense that this type of solutions bring so much value that how could you turn something like that down? Right. You can't.
Right.
So,
well, I don't know. Like, I can't speak for other companies. I know that other places that work, they might think differently today in today's labor environment. But it's not typical for me to see projects underwritten with team efficiency. And again, I can't speak to what other companies are doing. I just know my experience when I worked for other ones. We didn't really consider that as part of a payback analysis, right? We didn't underwrite saying that, we're going to save 45 minutes for lock change and then monetize that. Still, our average cost of a guy is X, and you know what I mean? We do that today. But we do actually underwrite it. We do monetize any team member gains that we can get. And, because we do think that's meaningful, we do think it's real. So yeah, so we'll use that time savings as part of our cost benefit analysis.
When it comes to key performance indicators, Jim, for maintenance team members, which metrics do you consider the most important for measuring success?
Yep. Time to turn apartments, I think, is really critical. It's hard to sell inventory that you don't have on the shelf, right? And showing somebody selling off of a model and those kind of things, I want to see the apartment that I'm going to live in, right? So that's a big one, time to turn. Time to address a work order. Now, I want to clarify this one because everyone talks about close work orders in 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on the company, whatever. Is it really critical that I come fix every single thing within 24 hours? And I want to provide as high a level of customer service as you can experience anywhere. I want to be very clear on that, right? But if I call you, you put a ticket in for, let's say, an ice maker. Not saying ice makers aren't important. They're important. But if I call you and I say, hey, Jim, I'm sorry to hear your ice maker's on the fritz. Can we get you on the schedule for a week from Tuesday? And you might, oh my God, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how about, get a bag of ice and chill or something. I mean, we might have to negotiate this out. One of the things that I see happen sometimes is like people get this notion that they got to stop what they're doing and go like take care of this thing because it just came up, right? So if I call you and we negotiate together and we decide together on what's going to be achievable and acceptable for you, I think that's a great level of service. So I'm going to say that because I think time to complete and close work orders is important, but I'm much more, right now, I'm much more drawn to, did we react and contact the customer within 24 hours? And I think that's what's more important. And everybody measures this a little bit different. They include what they exclude. We have a way that we do it, right? It's not interesting or important how we do it and what widgets we include and don't include. I think this is a trend indicator, and we actually do it on a per square foot basis. We have a system that knows, when an apartment moves out, we know how big it is, right? So we can, it's not necessarily perfect. Like we don't measure like how much it took to turn unit 103, and unit 103 is 1,232 square feet. We will look at 103 moved out with 1,232 square feet. Here's the gross cost of what that property spent to return. Here's how many square feet, so it's more of an aggregated calculation. We do it on a square foot basis, not unit by unit by unit. And what's interesting to me with that is, that the square footage methodology gets rid of the size of the unit, right? Townhouse, whatever, it doesn't matter. Sort of townhouse upstairs, that's a little bit of an anomaly. But it gives us something to measure ourselves against, and it gives us a way to benchmark things internally and to drive improvement. At Centerspace, we say better every day, right? That's our mantra. That's part of our culture, right? So we're interested in having a culture of continuous improvement. Mistakes are how we learn. Mistakes are okay. It's fine. Better every day is continuous improvement. And so looking at our cost per turn and then starting to focus on certain areas, once we started doing this, we saw that sometimes you might see something like, sometimes people decide they're going to do something under capitals because it's below the line instead of above the line. I'm sure no one's ever seen this and no one knows what the heck I'm talking about, right? Anyway, this makes some of those things plain and makes some of those decisions plain, like, oh, I'm not going to clean a carpet, I'm going to replace the carpet instead. Or one of the things we saw, and I don't know what all the causes were, like the pandemic was a part of it, the pent up evictions and stuff like that, I think were probably a part of this, but also I think that the, kind of unprecedented year-over-year increases were also a part of, what we saw was like a tremendous amount of flooring replacement happening in our charts, like off the charts, right? And because we were measuring things in this way, we were able to see that, and because we look at it every single month, and because we're measuring ourselves against ourselves, then we're able to say, okay, this seems to be, an area of opportunity for us, and then we can focus on it. So I don't look at national averages for things like cost of turn because, again, what are you putting in there? What don't you have in there? And market by market. You almost got to use like an RS means cost adjustment mechanism if you're going to do market over market analysis, right? It's not fair to compare Atlanta to Minneapolis, somebody might say, right? I'm just not that interested in that stuff. I think if we look at ourselves and benchmark against ourselves, and we're making improvements all along the way, that's the primary use that we have for that cost data.
Jim, it was great having you today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us, to share your wisdom with me and the audience. In closing, what are some closing thoughts for our audience?
The technology stuff, cost stuff, all this kind of stuff that we talked about is really great. I think that from my perspective, this is about the team. This is about the people. I mentioned that our teams are really our product, not our swimming pools and our tennis courts that we've now converted to pickleball courts. That stuff, that's not where the rubber hits the road, right? And corporate is certainly not where the rubber hits the road. Where I sit, this is not our business. I'm overhead, and in corporate, at Centerspace, we call ourselves support. So investing in our teams, not just financially. Financially is important, making sure that we're at the right wages and stuff like that, but having training programs and having growth opportunities for our people. Because as they're growing and they're more satisfied, that resonates and that comes through with the customer, and that helps us drive a higher level of service.
Jim, if someone in the audience wants to get a hold of you, wants to reach out to you, what are some best ways to get in contact with you?
Sure. You could email me at jrmitchell, MITCHELL, at centerspacehomes.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Jim Mitchell. I'm based here in Minneapolis and work for Centerspace for some additional filters on your LinkedIn search.
Thank you again, Jim. Amazing conversation. I really enjoy. I hope to get you back here soon because there's a lot more that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, no, we could definitely spend some more time talking about all of these things and plenty more. There's definitely we're not at a deficit for things to talk about when it comes to apartment maintenance, that's for sure.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching us today. I hope to see you back here soon. This is Multifamily X podcast, the maintenance series. We hope to see you back here soon. I'm your host, Adrian Danila, and this is a podcast powered by our friends from Appwork. Have a great day.